welcome back, you guys, for another episode of Word Nerds Play. I'm Pastor, and I have a very special co-host this episode. CJ had something to do, so I am joined by a very good friend, fellow Batman fanatic, and the guy who happens to sign my paychecks. So introduce yourself, man.
Sure. I'm David Hunt. I'm owner of the Game Masters Guild, a friendly local game store here in Crestview, Florida. And Pastor, I want to say I really appreciate you having me on your show, and I'm really honored. I think this is great. And, of course, one of my favorite topics, Batman.
Dude, for real, like, we've talked about it. We were talking probably before the podcast was even made, but certainly before we made episode 1, we had to do one on Batman, and I think that one actually inspired the Spider-Man episode that you can find if you look in the description below. I'm going to link that video. So I knew that we were going to tackle Batman. I just wanted to make sure that I had someone who was as much of a Batman fan as myself, since you guys know CJ hates DC for whatever reason, and I have a couple of Batman friends that are fans as well, but none as big as Dave, I don't think, with the exception of maybe one. But yeah, so Dave was gracious enough to agree to do this with me, so I'm really excited. We have a couple of topics, a couple of intro bullet points and stuff that I think we can elaborate on pretty significantly. So unless you have anything to say, I think we're gonna dive right in.
Man, let's get to it. I'm super excited. I can't wait. Although I will plug real quick my favorite Spider-Man, Nicholas Hammond from the original TV series.
Oh, dude.
I just because that's what I grew up on as a kid. I just thought he was really cool, and that was my first introduction. That's why I really like Spider-Man. And then came Batman.
Nice.
So let's do this.
Dude, I'm gonna have to check out. I actually never seen that. I've seen the I know we've watched at work, we've watched like the intro to the show and like how he climbs up, he scales the wall and stuff. So I definitely have to check that out just because I can't be a true Spider-Man fan without that. So but yeah, so we're just gonna hop right into the first topic, and that's the pros and cons, so to speak, of each Batman character. I know that there are lots of different, you know, pros and cons for each ones that kind of gloss over and like spill over to all of them. But I definitely don't want to make it seem like one of them is just god awful, because I know that they aren't. So yeah, there are a lot of pros and cons for each of the Batman stars. We're probably going to gloss over some of them just because they're so similar. We're not going to unfortunately talk about actors like Adam West, and I forget who played him in like before Adam West. I think it was like the 50s. I'm not remembering his name right now, but we're going to skip them just because they're not as, not to say that they're bad, but they're not as like well known. I think a lot of them are like classical at this point, and it wouldn't be fair to judge them based off of like the newer movies. What do you think?
Well, I think it's just fair to mention that the 60s Batman did help revitalize Batman because it brought a lot of notoriety and a lot of interest to him. Although also, too, that was an era where a lot of the heroes got a little more campy and a little more super kid-friendly, which is what they were going for at the time. But prior to that, Batman was actually a much darker, grittier character, and in the earlier incarnation of him, like the earliest incarnation, he actually used a gun, but then they dialed that back. And then later on, things start to drop off. Then they introduced the 60s Batman, and that's when his popularity started coming up. But I think, to me, I understand the difference between the older Batman versus, the 60s Batman versus the more modern incarnations. I think, that's what everybody needs to keep in mind, is we're looking at the more modern incarnations of Batman.
Yeah, I think that's a better way of putting it. And as some of you know, those of you who are Batman or even comic fanatics, there are certain characters from the past, like that things have to come up, kind of keep up with the times. I know I've talked a bunch about things like the wars, like if you talk about like the Punisher and how originally it was Vietnam and now it's like the Iraqi war because of the new generation of comic book fans and all that kind of thing. So the fact that it was modern Batman, that's a really good way of putting that. So yeah, I think we'll just start off with, I have a couple notes here because I need notes. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. So
I'm so excited.
You're excited, so you don't even need notes.
I don't need notes.
He's showing me up. All right, so for me, I'm going to start with Michael Keaton. He was Batman twice. He was Batman for the original from 1989, and he was Batman for Batman Returns. And I really didn't want to just go into it just knowing the little bit that I did. So I did rewatch some of the movies earlier today to make some of these notes. And if it's all right with you, I'm just going to start with the pros for Keaton and then go with the cons, and then ask you if you have any pros and cons that I left out.
Sure.
So the first one I have written is that I thought he was very stoic. I thought he was the way he carried himself was very like presentable and not necessarily cocky, but it's almost like he was educated. He was well educated, and just he carried himself in a manner that was like no BS kind of deal. And I think it's because we all know who he was. You know, he was Bruce Wayne, but he was also Batman. So him being the first Batman, the firstborn, if you will, I think he's going to have a lot of accolades that are just owed to him for being the first Batman to bring Batman into the mainstream. But other than that, his costume I thought was great. I loved, dude, I loved it.
Oh, it was great. Just to see that on screen, just to see the trailers for it, I was like,
yeah,
that's Batman.
Yep.
I mean, that's Batman. Oh, man, I was freaking out when I went to go see it as a kid. Oh, man, that was amazing. And I got to tell you, kudos to Michael Keaton. If you just said, hey, Dave, we're going to make a movie, going to have Michael Keaton as Batman, I'd be like, breaks. No. But seeing him as Batman, he's really good. I really enjoyed it. And I'm a little biased because it was my first Batman on the big screen. But I wasn't disappointed. I really enjoyed him. He's really good. There's something about him, a certain presence he had, I thought.
Yeah.
As both Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to put my finger on it just because it's such a like a variety of words that you can use to explain someone without having them breach a territory, kind of like, you know, cocky or arrogant, because that's not really what it presented to me. But it was definitely something about Keaton's Batman that blew a lot of people away. I was very, very young. I was only a year old when it came out, but I did watch it like immediately as soon as I could. I've been a Batman fan since I was about 5 years old, and my mom just threw me a Batman party, and I didn't know who Batman was. I just thought the action figure looked really cool, and she was a big fan of the TV show with Adam West. So later on, you know, my mom's like, yeah, Batman's this guy who, you know, goes around solving crime, and he wears like a cape and everything, and that's how it sealed for me. So other than that, like other than the costume being just straight up awesome, some of the things about it that I think blew it away were the fact that it was, I think, the first time we ever saw Batman in all black as opposed to the dual color.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of the dual color, but that to me signifies the detective Batman, if that makes any sense, versus the Dark Knight, which to me is more gritty and more fisticuffs, if you will, I guess. I know it's kind of an old term, but
yeah,
but you know, more action oriented, I suppose. But I didn't mind because you know, he operates at night, and it makes sense to be an all black, and then you have just the bright emblem with a black bat to help draw the criminal's eye. And if they're going to shoot at him, they're going to aim for that because it's the most clear thing that they can see, and I like that.
Yeah, and that you could assume that that's where like most of his like Kevlar or something would be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that contrast. It's a very you know, bold, iconic bat symbol that, you know, at most of the time was used for things like his batarang and like his the grappling hook part of his actual, you know, grappling hook, and it was just a very iconic symbol, very symmetrical, very to the point. You knew exactly what it was. The silhouette of like the head of the bat was not like a normal bat, but like what he wears and the silhouette that he casts. Yeah, it was just great. It's a great look. I know it was a little impractical. Like, kind of had like a robot neck going around.
Yeah, it was a little hard for him, and I know it seems like they always struggle with that in the movies to get the look right, and you know, but all in all, I'm not disappointed though. There's a lot of trouble bringing certain things, especially fantastic things, to the big screen, and I still think they did really good, especially for the time.
Yeah. There's a little stickler thing that I've always had this conversation with friends about Batman, that it's like a little pet peeve, if you will, and that's the fact that they never got his outfit completely correct. I know that's not a big deal. It doesn't take away from the character, but Batman in the animated series for me, which is like the oldest representation of Batman that I have, is that he has the white, solid Deadpool eyes.
Yeah. You know, it didn't occur to me, but you're right, because even in the comic books, unless there's like a super close up on him where you can really see his eyes because you need some kind of emotion or like something like that, but it's always kind of like just this blank area. And I never really thought about it till now, honestly.
Yeah,
but that makes sense though. Yeah,
because like even in the X-Men, like Wolverine or any character, well, Storm, that's how she had her eyes. But any character that wore any kind of mask or cowl, their eyes were always just white, solid white, and it just added, you know, to it.
I do have something, a little aside. I've noticed in just about every superhero movie I've ever watched, it doesn't matter if it's a series or a movie, you can always tell when they're wearing their cowl or their mask, there's always the black face paint around their eyes to help keep everything blacked out. And then you notice the next scene when they take it off, it's not there.
Right.
Where does it go? Where does it come from? I've always wondered that. Yeah. I hate the nitpick, but that's my one thing. I'm like, whenever I watch it, I'm like, that's not exactly right. Oh, okay. I just got to get it out of my mind. Keep watching.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of that goes to, you know, as you guys obviously know, the practicality of everything, and just the fact that it just doesn't look as polished and as mysterious or alluring or whatever. But another great thing about this Batman for me was the fact that he was a really good Bruce Wayne. He had the good Bruce Wayne Batman contrast, where, you know, you kind of put yourself in his shoes and say, hey, I need to make sure that I keep this masquerade up, no pun intended, but at the same time, still carry on myself as, you know, billionaire or whatever his title was at the time. It wasn't the best, because we'll definitely cover which one we both think was the best, but it was definitely really well done, especially for the first Batman that really took on the superhero title of Batman. Another thing I think that most people don't know that are Batman fans today are is the fact that the Keaton Batman and the Tim Burton Batman films inspired the animated series that is so well renowned as like one of the greatest animated series, especially for superheroes of all time.
I didn't really know that, actually. I had no idea that inspired that. And and that's something I need to catch up on, because I'm a super Batman fan, but also too, I gotta say, I've just been so busy. It just seems like I missed it when it was on, and then I'm trying to catch up to it, and it just seems like the timing's always off. And it's definitely the thing to watch. I mean, I haven't even seen it. I've seen snippets, and I haven't seen it all, but yet I already know that if you hadn't seen it, you need to go see it.
Definitely.
The whole series.
Yeah, it's probably in everyone's top 10, especially any comic book fans' top 10. Danny Elfman did the music for the show, and he did the music for the movie first, but the fact that they actually got him on, it's almost, if I'm not mistaken, the exact same like score that plays throughout most of the animated series is what they used in the very first Batman movie. So that's a piece of a factoid or a trivia that most people don't really know about.
So you're schooling me on Batman, and you said I'm a Batman fanatic.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet detail that it's just one of those things that it's not integral to anything, but it's definitely something that translates well when you know it. You can kind of go, oh, that's why they did it that way. Now, as far as the pros go, I really couldn't think of any more because it was just not there, and I didn't want to pretend like it was. So if there were any other pros on Keaton's Batman or Bruce Wayne or both that you know that I left out.
There's nothing I can really think of. In hindsight, I didn't realize it then, but in hindsight, looking back at it, we actually didn't get they didn't start with the origin story. He's just already doing his thing. And I actually kind of like that, because so many movies, when they start out or it's a reboot, we have to do the origin story one more time. But we get it in Keaton's Batman and flashbacks, and I actually like that. And I didn't realize it until now. But other than that, I can't think of anything else that you hadn't already covered.
Actually, yeah. And it's funny, I didn't write that down. I like I said, I did rewatch some of these movies today, and I didn't realize that they didn't show the origin story in the first one. It was a little confusing because I talked to Dave about this before we started, that I was confused in the very first time watching it, that the first couple and the son that you see leaving the theater is not Bruce Wayne. I thought it was, and I was kind of like, what? Why is he having a hard time, hailing a cab? And why is it that, his wife is calling him Howard when his name is Thomas? Did they switch that? And I didn't think they did, but I was relieved to find out that they didn't, and that it was going to be showcased in flashbacks, like you said, Dave. And I like that. I really like that a lot, because it's a detail that the average person who's going to go see a Batman movie probably doesn't know the details of how his parents died, but they pretty much know that he's an orphan. I mean, I think that goes without say. But yeah, other than that, I really don't have any pros for Keaton.
The only thing I can think of is that this is quickly becoming a podcast about the Michael Keaton Batman.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel
like we're really getting there.
Yeah,
which isn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wanted to kind of be thorough with him, because he did 2 movies, and definitely make it known for those of you that don't know. Definitely watch them; they're worth a watch. I think Tim Burton knocked it out.
They're classics, and the Batmobile.
Oh man!
And the first action entrance of Batman, when he breaks through the skylight in the art museum, and the music, dun 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 dun,
yep,
dun 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 dun, dun, and he grabs Vicky Vale and he sticks his grappling gun out, and it goes both ways, grapple, and out.
Yeah.
And he's like, get in the car, car, da-na-na-na-na, and sitting right there.
Yeah.
She's like, whoa. And you see the Batmobile like, I want one.
Yeah, dude. Like even
Oh
Joker
my gosh.
commented, he was like, where does he get all these wonderful toys?
toys.
You know, yeah.
Oh, man.
But there were some cons, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's cons with everything. But with Keaton specifically, for me, and definitely feel free to disagree because that's what this is about. There wasn't real character, like a deep character development with Keaton's Batman. I think they kind of left it out in lieu of like the Joker and what the Joker was doing. It didn't really seem like a Batman movie, but when Batman was on screen, he got all of your attention. And that's both good and bad.
Yeah. I definitely felt that there could have been a little more, especially even though I said these more modern Batman are kind of more the gritty action oriented ones, whereas the blue and gray that we see in the comics, a lot of times he's portrayed as more of the greatest detective in the world because that's who Batman is. He's the greatest detective in the world. But in the second one, Batman Returns,
Right.
then when Cobblepot's at the library researching stuff, you can see Batman kind of just in the Batmobile, just kind of going slowly, driving by outside and kind of watching him. And you know that Batman's following up on him. He's doing research, he's doing the detective thing. And I do wish in all the Batman movies that we could see some more of that, because even though I love all the action, I love all the movies, especially some of the other ones we'll talk about later.
Oh, yeah.
But I really wish we could see more of that master detective, to see him put the things together, kind of get some of that Sherlock Holmes stuff in there, that Robert Downey Jr. had going on in his Sherlock Holmes movies.
So good.
Or Cumberbatch, when he did his TV series.
Yeah.
I kind of ache to see anything that really portrays Batman as not more than just this man of physicality, but the man who is like literally a super genius.
Right. And that's something that I think gets better and better throughout the movies, because we'll get to Kilmer in a second, but he definitely got better as far as like the detective Batman, and as far as like him being the Batman that ended up becoming the mainstream Batman, which is the brains. And in the animated series, it's never the brawn, because that's what Superman's there for. But yeah, I know I talked to you about it before we started, that it just seemed, especially in the first movie, not so much in the second one, but in the first one, it just seemed like everyone snuck up on him all the time.
Oh,
and you
I'm a little counter to this, but go ahead.
Yeah, like everyone's just like, if you guys watch it, let me know what you think in the comments below. But it just seems like he was always cogitating, or he was always in a fog. And whether it was Alfred or Vicky Vale's character, or even just a random person, like there's a scene specifically where he's going up the I guess the town hall or the town square or whatever, and it's right before the Joker shows up for the first time, I think, with all the mimes show up, and they start to like go around all the people, and one of them is like literally dancing like right in front of Bruce, and he's not looking at him at all. And it's not until he does this flailing motion with one hand that he kind of looks over at him, and then he's just like, and he gives him the up and down, and then goes right back to looking up. And I'm like, dude, you're in the middle of the street and you're like asleep. So it's not that I hate it. It's just, it just came off as funny to me, and that's just how I felt. I felt like he was like in his own head way too much.
But weren't they like having a press conference or something there, and he was watching it?
I think so.
And see now I feel bad. I feel stupid that I didn't go back and rewatch it. But he was there, and I think they were having a small press conference. Something was going on, and he was super focused on that. So all these other people on the street, he probably sees these kind of street performers all the time in Gotham. He's like, who's this guy? Not an immediate threat. Okay, focused back on what I need to be focused on. Or like you mentioned to me earlier about when he's in the Batcave, and he's like watching all the screens, and Alfred comes up, and he seems startled by it. But then again, he's in his sanctum sanctorum. He's totally focused. He's at ease because he's in his super safe place. And Alfred just happened to get the drop on him because Batman allowed it, and it just happened to spook him.
Yeah,
but
it's nitpicking at that point.
It is.
Keaton's Batman's pretty solid.
But we'll interject real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of our back and forth, and a lot of the complaints we might have about certain actors or certain things, a lot of it does have to do with the writing.
Definitely.
And when you're given a script, you can't just be like, oh, here's all of my revisions, even though I know some actors have done stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of it does have to do with the writing, and this is what I got to work with,
And sometimes that's it could be a double-edged sword, or it can be a blessing, because we know there are some movies where the source material or the script or whatever was just okay, and then the actors, whether it's just the lead or the lead and some of the supporting actors, just save it and salvage it, and all of a sudden they become cult classics and then just full blown classics at sometimes. But the point with like as you said with movies is it's very hard to say who's the best Batman in this case without saying, well, the script was just garbage. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of my biggest struggles in writing these notes is, why was Batman, for example, maybe Tim Burton wanted him to be, to seem super like clueless because of the contrast between because when he's Batman, he is sharp. And I can go and say that on the record. Keaton's Batman is like on point. Like he's always like his surveillance, like his eyes, they do a lot of zoom in on his eyes. I think maybe that might be a Burton stylization, but
overall, Keaton real strong as Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Definitely.
Especially for it being, to me, one of the first mainstream superheroes that I can really remember watching in the theater and going, wow, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I just watched a superhero movie,
Yeah. I'm going to see it again.
Right? So that brings us to Kilmer. Now, Kilmer, I thought was, in my opinion, he was a bit of a compliment to Keaton. I don't think he was better than Keaton at all.
I don't think it was nothing like Keaton. Didn't care for him too much. I thought his Bruce Wayne was too robotic and way too aloof. I did like his Batman to an extent. I felt he did a pretty good job Batman, but his Bruce Wayne, no, we're not even close to Keaton.
Gotcha. So I was gonna ask Dave to pretty much take over all the cons, because I honestly didn't write any. I wrote refer to Dave. Because
I know I kind of jumped in on you.
No, you're good. You're good. I just, because for me, he was a bit of a carbon copy, but I think he had like the better intentions, because it still wasn't or it wasn't a Tim Burton movie, but it was definitely still a Batman movie that coincided. We still got I just said his name like 30 times, but the guy who played Alfred, I think it was Pat Hingle, I think is his name. We got him throughout all of these old original Batman movies.
That was cool to see him in 4 different movies, and that kind of, even though we had the different actors playing Batman and the different villains coming and going, but it was kind of nice to have that one guy, that little air of familiarity, and kind of sewed it together.
Yes, because it's very, without him,
somewhat.
Definitely, yeah. Without him, like, to get from Kilmer to Clooney, it's completely different. Even though, you may think, you guys watching are like, oh no, but it's the same, writing staff or whatever. The fact that Alfred was the same definitely tied those movies together. With Kilmer, he, like you said, I agree, was very robotic. There were a couple things that I did like, and that was that I really got to see I know it helped that the Riddler was the bad guy, but we really got to see his mind working. I know there were a couple scenes where he gets the riddles and stuff and he breaks them down. And
now that I think about it, I did like that, because it was, then you got, like I talked about earlier at length, some of that master detective, because now he's got to try to discover what these riddles are about, and the riddles are always trying to do this mental fencing with Batman and leaving these riddles and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and like at one point, I think it was one of his employees says, but who sent you this riddle? And he goes, well, that is the riddle, is to find out who is sending this to me, because it's all random. And at one point, I think he talks to not Vicky Vale's character, but Nicole Kidman's character, I forget her name, and she says, because he's a psychiatrist or whatever, and he says, what's the point and all this, and she tries to like break it down, or I think he does, I can't remember who, but they say, oh, they're all small objects, a clock, a match, and I forget what the other thing was, but it was like super small, and but I just got to see more of that, that Batman of like, I'm also Bruce Wayne, guys, I'm not just Batman. So that was a plus for me. And for me, I know you said you didn't like his Bruce Wayne at all.
I didn't. I really didn't.
I thought it was
I enjoyed the movie still. Don't get me wrong.
He was just a bit more confident to me, I think. Like he carried himself a little bit more confident. Like with Keaton, he was like, not that he was like a wuss or anything, but he was very polite and very like not like, I don't want to say showboaty. It's kind of hard to find the word, but like Kilmer was a little bit more like charismatic, I think.
Oh man, see, I didn't feel that at all. I thought Keaton was more charismatic and he seemed more settled. Like, yes, I'm this rich guy who owns Wayne Enterprises. Everybody knows me, but he's more comfortable in his skin. I didn't feel like Kilmer was very comfortable in his skin as Bruce Wayne. Now as Batman, again, I thought he was pretty good, but yeah, I just didn't like him as Bruce Wayne. Just he he seemed too stiff to me, and that was just me. And maybe it's just maybe I'm not remembering it correctly, but I've always kind of felt that though. I'm just like, it's okay.
And that's the beauty of these kind of episodes, guys. Let me, again, load the comments below. Let us know in this specific. We finally reached the very first like fork in our belief with Batman, and that leaves you guys the opportunity to say, no, I like Keaton because of XYZ, or Kilmer because X. For me, it was, I don't think it was better than Kilmer, or than Keaton rather. But there were parts of it that I think got better with time as well, as far as like the franchise goes. But I definitely appreciate the contrast to it, because if we agreed about everything, this episode would be like 20 minutes long.
We'd be done.
Yeah. So moving on from Kilmer, since he did have the one movie, George Clooney.
Okay.
Now this is gonna be it's gonna be borderline painful for me, guys. I'm gonna be honest. If George Clooney's your favorite Batman, and you're a subscriber, please don't unsubscribe. But he was rough, man. He was rough. Like I literally have under his pros 2 question marks, because I couldn't find any. Now, not that I don't think any exist, because if there are pluses, you guys comment, Dave, please enlighten me. But for me, everything it literally just took a nosedive for the worst, with no safety net, nothing. No pun intended with Robin, what ends up happening with his character. But there were no safety nets for George Clooney as Batman. I just hated it. I really didn't. As a kid, it was cool because the marketing was genius. Like we had light up Batmobiles, and we had like Batman and Robin action figures that if you put their face under warm water, their mask goes away. Like I remember that stuff. But Clooney as Batman. Oof.
Perhaps one of the greatest Batman performers. No, I'm just kidding. No, I did feel that. Now, again, me and my wife went to the movie, enjoyed it, loved it, because it was the next installment of Batman.
Right.
The Batmobile was a little too out there for me. It was like, what is this?
It was a convertible.
It was weird. And then, but anyways, getting back to actual Clooney as Batman and Bruce Wayne, I actually didn't mind him as Bruce Wayne. I kind of felt it worked enough for me. I was like, okay, I can buy him as Bruce Wayne. As Batman, no. It just, and of course, though, that whole movie was just kind of, at every moment, I was like, oh, something, I wanted to try to like it. And I do, and I still enjoy it because it's just fun, and movies should just be fun. You shouldn't overthink them, really. But for what I was looking for, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's a nice, date movie just to kill some time, or run it in the background while I'm doing something else. But then again, if I'm going to play a Batman movie in the background, it's probably not going to be that one, unless I just happen to see it and like, I'm lazy, I'm going to play this one because I don't want to search for another one,
Right. And nah. a lot of it goes back to, all the classic problem of like adding too much to a movie. Now that's not why Clooney himself just rubbed me the wrong way as Batman. It's just because to me, they added, Robin obviously, and then they added like Alicia Silverstone and stuff like that. But Clooney, it didn't do anything. It didn't add to Clooney at all. Like whether she was there, or even if Robin wasn't there, it wouldn't have done anything, because Clooney wasn't, when he was Bruce Wayne, I could be like, well, maybe he could have been a better villain, because he had a very he kept his eye contact, which is huge.
I could see. I could see that.
He was very direct. Like whenever he was in the room, he commanded the room. Like there are scenes where Alfred was like in bed sick, and Bruce was just like in the doorway, and for some reason the whole room was filled with him, just because his presence. I mean, George Clooney is a very, that's why the Ocean's movies, he was like the spearhead for that. And even the Men Who Stare at Goats, I don't know why, he just commanded the presence for me. Jeff Bridges is like insanely good as an actor, and even Ewan McGregor, but Clooney was like who I was focusing on. Granted, his character was very silly. But anyway, back on topic, I just couldn't find anything positive about Clooney's portrayal as Batman.
I'm going to come back to the whole writing thing. And I purely see this movie in hindsight now as a let's sell some toys.
Definitely.
Let's cash in on this in the plastic market as best as we can. Let's sell Happy Meals, And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think the movie suffered for that, and I don't know if that was their intention. But again, writing could have changed it. Different director could have changed it immensely. I mean, Bat Nipples, Bat Credit Card,
Joel Schumacher. I mean, who knows?
I don't know. It just, But overall, as it stands, as the movie is, Clooney,
Yeah,
nah,
I don't like it.
nah.
Now, I think we pretty much covered all the cons with the exception of maybe one in trying to find pros. So we're not going to stay on Clooney too long. He seemed like I have him written down as like the dad Batman. He felt more like a babysitter than a superhero to me. And it literally felt like if a generic father figure was cosplaying Batman when he was Batman. I just did, the fight sequences were terrible. And that's not even talking about how bad the villain, because Poison Ivy was okay.
Yeah, and the gratuitous plug of Holy Rusted Metal Batman going back to the 60s. I need fan service. I don't need that much fan service.
Dude, I'm trying so hard not to explode when you think of that. Like the stupid puns in the form of Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "Everybody chill." Like,
and what's interesting is I will bring up Arnold Schwarzenegger later, but not right now.
Yeah,
because I want to get to him really bad because you got it down on the list and I need to talk about it.
Heck yeah. Dude.
So
I just, that's just for me. If Clooney's your favorite Batman, please let me know why. If you want to leave me a detailed paragraph, I will be more than happy to read it. But for me, no.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Batman goes, I think we've reached the very tippy top of the list, if not runner-up at best, which I think there are very, very few people that think he is a runner-up. I think everyone thinks this next Batman is the Batman, and that is none other than Christian Bale himself from the Nolan universe of Batman movies.
Thank you.
The pros, half of the page are the pros.
He's the best Bruce Wayne. He's the best Batman. He's got the look. He's got the feel for me. A lot of it, also, again, I'm going to say it again, I'm beating a dead horse here, is the writing.
Oh, God.
Because we got the origin story, which, again, I'm not big on retellings, but we got it. And we also got to see the process of him growing.
Yes.
From this, this Avenger just to, avenge the death of his parents to this man who decides to lose himself willingly. I mean, this man's Wayne Enterprises, and then he ends up overseas somewhere stealing his own merchandise, but not letting anybody know who he is.
Yep.
He goes to jail. He learns all these skills. And even though these are just seconds of snippets and with a little bit of dialogue here and there, so you get what he's going through, but yet it builds very quickly. And when he returns to Gotham and he is the Batman, then you're like, oh, man, I've seen this guy built up, and wow, it hasn't even been very long in the movie. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And that carries through to all three movies.
Yes.
And they did a very excellent job. And Christian Bale, he just knocked it out of the park. He really did. It was just the right timing of everything.
You made a really good point in the fact that the first 2 or 3 times I watched this movie, including the theater, I did not realize at first that he does have this, unorthodox way of growing and stealing his own stuff. And, at first I thought he gave the homeless man his coat and his wallet and took his scraps just because he wanted to be incognito for, whatever moment. But it never dawned on me how deep that was and how he pretty much killed himself and resurrected himself at the same time.
I think, was it Alfred that said something like, no, it was somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but someone said to him, you'd have to go either like 1,000 miles or halfway around the world to go somewhere where someone that doesn't know who Bruce Wayne is,
Yeah.
And then that stuck with him very close to that scene. And then that's when he, threw the coat, he gave the guy the wall and just vanished. And he at that moment, he totally decided to reinvent himself.
And a lot of it, I think, if memory serves, because I haven't seen Batman Begins a whole lot, just because the other 2 movies, I think, just kind of overshadow it with just the fan service and everything else. But I think in Batman Begins, there's like a mini arc or a mini plot point where his biggest goal is to step away from the shadow of his father, because everyone was comparing him, like, how are you going to be the son of Thomas Wayne and you're desecrating his legacy? And Wayne Enterprises is supposed to be this like this thing that you hold up to these standards, and you're just this snotty old orphan kid, and I think a lot of that may have had to do with like his come to Jesus moment, if you will, of like, listen, I need to be Bruce Wayne and just realize that that's my name, but I'm my own person who has this company to run and this image to uphold, but without losing who I am. And when he realized he didn't know who he was, he went off and made it. So that's just that encompasses a lot of the pros, and I think that that's what made for a successful trilogy, successful franchise. It definitely resurrected Batman. Most people were like, no. I remember having friends that were a little older than me in high school that they saw the poster, iconic poster with like the very Halloween orange background of him like falling with just a bunch of bats around them, and people were like, another Batman movie. I know my mom was one of them, was like, another Batman movie.
So I was a little worried too. I'm always worried when I see, oh, it's another Batman movie, it's another this movie, it's another that movie. And I was not disappointed.
No. Now, like I said, it's not that Batman Begins is weak. It's just weaker than the other two that follow it. But that does nothing for Christian Bale because he just gets better and better because the character gets better and better. Like you said, I have notes here saying that the character development started with the first one, kind of kept going all the way throughout the third one. The fighting sequences were really, really well done. The choreography was great. I know a lot of that comes with time and that territory and stuff. But
speaking of the fighting sequences, I enjoy his time when he was with Ra's al Ghul, and where you saw him getting trained as this shadow, basically. And I thought it was so cool. And I love it in movies when they film it and, you know, a guy drops from the ceiling and no one could actually drop from the ceiling and not make any sound.
Right.
They cut the sound. So to emphasize how good they are, and when I see him like drop down and move, I'm like, oh, that's so cool,
dude. It happened in Blade, the original Blade.
Oh yeah, didn't it? Yeah.
When Karen Jensen or whatever, she's running through trying to escape, and Whistler's trying to chase her, and then all of a sudden she hits that gate and the chain link fence and turns around, and Whistler's like, off the beaten path, doctor, or whatever, and like, he's like, I'm Abraham Whistler, and you just see him land like a cat. Don't make a sound.
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
Like,
I always love that.
Yeah. He's like, you already met Blade. She turns around, she's like, when did he get here? Yeah, but we saw it happen. So a lot of that stuff just so well done. The deep contrast between Bruce and Batman, obviously, that goes without say. To me, he was the most believable portrayal of Batman. I thought that Nolan's Batman was something that you can probably run into. It wasn't this larger than life, person who just was super lucky or just so happens to be at the right place at the right. No, it was like someone who had a buttload of money, but that wanted to make a difference and put the time in to become a martial artist, and all that kind of thing. So it was believable for that.
I really felt the drive for his character,
Yeah.
And I really felt that when he was portraying, Christian Bale was portraying Bruce Wayne and Batman, that I really got it because Bruce Wayne is actually Batman pretending to be Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And I really got that with this. You could tell, even though he buys the hotel and, sits in the fountain with the girls and all that stuff, but he puts on a really good ambiance of show, and you're like, oh, that dude is stinking rich, because he's like, hey, man, I'm cool, I'm chill. Look, I just bought your hotel. I'm going to go swim in the fountain. And he does it. But then again, there is this undertone of, yeah, I'm just going through the motions, bro, because in a couple hours, I'll be out beating up bad guys,
And it'll be like the perfect alibi of like, how is a snotty, super arrogant, super showboaty person going to be this, knight for justice or whatever you want to say.
And it helped with Michael Caine as Alfred saying, well, Mr. Wayne, if you're going to come home with bruises and stuff, you need to make sure, people are going to see him. You're going to be hurt during the day. People are going to realize it. You need to have an excuse. Yeah. So you need to take up like croquet or not a polo. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was. You got to take up polo. Something to explain these serious injuries. You
right.
fall off a horse, that's going to hurt you,
Right. And a lot of that goes with the writing, like we said, and it's so hard to make this be about, who the best Batman is or whatever without consulting with the writing, and because that's what these actors have to work on. And I know we've said that many times, but with all that being said, at least for me, this is not perfect. He does have cons. I actually have 2 of them written here. One of them is kind of subjective, I think, because it doesn't take away from Batman. It would just make it better, quote unquote. Again, you guys let me know when I get to that one. But the first one was, and I think we can all agree on it, the overuse of the infamous... Yes. Yeah. Batman with laryngitis got old very fast.
Yeah.
It was cool. We talked about it off camera. It was cool in the first one. It was a use of intimidation. He was trying to, get everyone to make Batman a criminal household name, if you will. And it worked. You know, the guy, I forget who it was, that was like, you know, I swear to God, I'm telling you everything you're asking. And he's like, don't swear to God, swear to me. You know, that it worked there, but it just got, I mean, look, the internet full of memes.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually read somewhere that I think half of Christian Bale's pay actually went to throat lozenges. No, just kidding.
I would not be surprised.
I would not be surprised either. Now I will admit, in the very beginning of Batman Begins, when he's first presenting himself as this Batman, like when he breaks into Commissioner Gordon's office when he's there at night, and he grabs the stapler and uses his gun to kind of intimidate Gordon, so Gordon doesn't try anything. He doesn't have this about him. He's got this.
It's like a lower register.
It's a lower register voice. Yeah. And he's very just to the point, you know, hey, I can help you. Rachel Dawes, you know, she'll prosecute. And then, you know, that's what he says. He gets to the point and then he's done and he's gone. But it's not like, oh, we keep getting later on. Boy, that kind of hurts my throat.
Do you imagine how he feels? But a lot of this, like I said, a lot of this is subjective. You know, if you like the voice, definitely, you know, chime in down below in the comment section.
I just some overkill.
Yeah, I think it was just done way too much. I could do a whole episode about moments where it was just pure comedy. And as you know, the Nolan Batman has almost zero, if not less than zero comedy. It's a very to the point, very dark.
It is very dark.
Yeah, and literally when the fact that the word Batman is only really used in the title in the first one, it shows you. It's like it's a downhill ride, but not in a downhill ride where it's bad, just where you're going to get a Batman that you're probably, if you're a Batman fan, you're going to like.
And it keeps going through the second one.
Oh, geez, does it ever. Yeah.
All the way. Anyways.
All the way. Yeah, we could, like I said, we can praise this till the chickens come home, man. But the other thing that I wrote it as a con, and I don't know, like I said, as I'm reading it now, I'm overthinking it, and I'm second guessing it, I should say.
What's that?
The fact that there was no Robin. I know that Christian Bale said he did not want a Robin. I think that was part of the stipulation with Nolan as the movies continued, that there would be no Robin. And hear me out. The reason why I say no Robin is a negative or a con is because I love the struggle that Batman and Robin have in the comics. The fact that Robin is at some parts a necessity and literally saves his life. Other parts he's a liability. And, you know, and sometimes he's even a burden because Batman is trying to either work on a case or survive something or make sure that like Alfred doesn't get hurt or something. And then Robin just presents himself as, you know, he serves as like another person that can, you know, present or reveal Batman's weak side or like, oh, well, if we get to the Boy Wonder, we can get to the Bat, you know. And I get that. I'm well aware of that. But I am a huge Nightwing fan. And the fact that Dick Grayson, you know, in recent years hasn't really been Robin for a long time. A lot of the Nightwing stuff is what I'm like looking up and researching and stuff. And we never got that. I know that at the very end of the third one, we kind of get that soft Joseph Gordon-Levitt as like, why don't you use your other name, Robin? I like it. And, you know, that was a little fan servicey, but it ended the movie with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a compromise between Nolan and Bale. If you guys let us know in the comments below. But I really wanted to know what it would be like to have not so much a Robin, but to really have a Nightwing in that Nolan universe. Because Nightwing is badass. If you guys don't know anything about Nightwing, definitely do your research and get some comics in you on that, because it is a really good character and a great compliment to like Robin as an adult.
I have met a lot of Nightwing fans, and from the little bit of reading that I've done, I see why. I know back in the 60s, to appeal to a broader audience, to get wrangle kids in, they started getting all these child sidekicks everywhere. And even Stan Lee himself said in an interview that, you know, if these superheroes run around with these kids sidekicks, they'd be arrested for child endangerment, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I think the point is, it's not that Batman should be running around with some like 15-year-old kid busting up crime, because that's how I think Robin originally was, this super young kid, you know? But as just a less experienced, driven individual who had some other kind of tragedy, and Bruce happens to cross paths with him and says, hey, you know, I'll take you in my fold and I'll show you this thing because I can see what you're about to do and you're in a very bad place and I can't stop you, but I can guide you.
Right.
And so I could see a younger person, early 20s, something like that. And to me, that's more believable than having this real young youngster. Because I think way back in this, like kid, and it's like, no, that's just, I'm not down for that. But I am down for, I don't even want to call him a sidekick so much as a protege.
Yeah.
And I do like that. I don't necessarily miss, I think the point of the Nolan Batman movies was this Batman 3 movie arc, only because we got 3 movies with Christian Bale and that was it. But I don't think we're missing anything.
No.
But I think it would be unnecessary to have yet another Batman movie, introduce Robin, branch off from there. I think what should be done is, and it would be cool to see, a Nightwing movie where they just maybe show Nightwing already doing business, but then there's flashbacks about, him and Batman, and then how he used to be Robin, and then he branched off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that might be kind of cool. Do like an arc for him.
Kind of like a Batman Beyond. We were talking about how Bruce is like
Beyond's
retired.
Oh my God, that's another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that leaves, of course we could talk about each and every one of these all day, but that leaves us to the most recent portrayal of a live action Batman that we've gotten. And that's Ben Affleck as Batman in both Suicide Squad, Batman v Superman, and now the Justice League, both the theatrical and the Snyder Cut. For me, the pros were pretty unique. This time around, I was really happy with the fact that, to me, he was the Frank Miller Batman. I know you and I talked about how he was a bit more filled.
And I enjoyed that because you definitely tell he was more aged.
Yeah.
But you could still tell he was fit enough to do what he needed to do.
Right.
And I like that. And you're right. He filled out a little more. You can tell he's a little heavier because he's a little older, but I dug it. I'm right there with you.
I really liked the look. I liked the gray in the hair. I think Affleck was another one of those. I know for me, as soon as I heard Ben Affleck as Batman, I was like, what? But I have to remind myself that there are surprises. Ledger's Joker, Tom Hardy as Bane. I mean, these people can, if they really want to blow you away, an actor can do that. That's why their job is to pretend, because they are really, really good at it most of the time. But yeah, so other than that, showing that he's been Batman for a long time, that goes without say. And then the only other thing I have is that was my favorite costume, 100%.
Oh, yeah, I can see that because it's a little more of the black and gray, isn't it?
Yep, and they had like the bat was it was a very bold bat that went all the way across his chest. It wasn't just in the center. The cowl wasn't super dramatic, but it wasn't like the little bitty horns either.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do the garble voice, but he did do what we wanted Nolan or Bale to do, which is the lower register. And he did at one point when he fights Superman. I know that he has like in the Superman suit that he makes to beat him up. He does have a voice augmentator in it because someone talks about like, why is your voice all like robotic? And he goes, oh, it's in the cowl, I think is what he says. But he has like the leader role, the humor, the showboatiness, if you want to say. It's very self-aware, like the part with Flash where he's like, what's your superpower again? He's like, oh, I'm rich.
Yeah.
That was very tasteful. It wasn't super gaudy or super corny. I think it landed well with most fans. And that's pretty much it as far as like, because like I said, it's Batman. It's the same character, a lot of this stuff's going to overlap.
To me, the Ben Affleck Batman is closer to one of my favorite animated versions of Batman, which is in Batman Doom, where Vandal Savage, of course, he's gone all through time, and then come to find out he gets, oh man, I hope I'm not mixing them up. Oh man, I probably shouldn't say about Vandal Savage. I was trying to remember. That might be the wrong one. Someone's going to have to correct me down there in the comments if I'm wrong.
Please do.
But I know for sure that Mirror Master in the beginning of the movie gets into Batman's rearview mirror while the Batmobile's open, and Batman inadvertently takes him back to his Batcave. And then Mirror Master goes and gets into the computer and downloads all the information about the Justice League members that Batman has contingencies against.
Holy crap.
Because, well, he's always thinking 40 moves ahead of everybody else. And he's thinking, what happens if a member of the Justice League goes rogue? I need to prepare for this. And, of course, this comes out, and members of the Justice League start getting, taken down a notch. And they're trying to figure out who it was. Batman figures out, he's like, hey, this is what happened. Apparently someone downloaded all my information in the computer on how to defeat all you guys, and everybody is PO'd about this.
Oh, man.
And, but he explains himself. He says, look, if someone goes rogue, well, we wouldn't. Well, but you never know. Something could happen. And he explains himself very clearly and without any apologies. And I think it was Superman who said, at the end of it, he's like, well, what happens if you go rogue? What's your contingency for that? The rest of you. You know, So there you go, and it gives me chills.
It does
was very
too.
good.
It does,
and I really think it was. I think that episode had Vandal Savage. God, I can't remember though. I'm pretty sure it was. Again, correct me in the comments, but that was a very good one. I love that dude. Oh,
that's
so
a very
good.
very
It
good,
was very good.
Yeah, a very good story, a little mini story of.
And that, but anyways, Ben Affleck reminds me of that, and I just that thinking ahead and getting everybody together, just like in Justice League, he goes out and gets everybody together, which Snyder cut is much better.
Oh yeah.
Music in the first half's a little wonky, I think, but other than that, but yeah, no, I do really like Affleck though.
I was surprised because obviously we just got done talking about Christopher Nolan's Batman for probably what seemed like 15, 20 minutes, but Affleck's Batman, I think was, to me, I liked it better in a lot of ways that I didn't ever foresee, and I think it doesn't go with the fact that he was a better Batman objectively. I think it was just the Batman that I enjoy the most. That kind of Batman was the Affleck Batman. Like we said, the more, what seemed more grounded, more seasoned, nothing wrong with like a new hero or young hero, but like a hero like Batman, greatest detective of all time, the only member of the Justice League that's pretty much human. He's got a lot going against him, hanging around with all these, super metahumans or whatever. So there's a lot stacked against him in that regard, but also in his own humanity and the fact that his body is constantly deteriorating, just like any one of us. It really resonates with that Batman, and he's the Batman that we got the least of, which brings me to the cons of Affleck's Batman, and that's that there's not enough movies or not enough of him as Batman. That is a Batman that should be explored. I think Affleck really, really had a good time as Batman. I think there was an interview with Jimmy Fallon or Conan or somebody that had Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck talking about the upcoming movie, trying to do some press and stuff for that, and talking about how he just got the call from Zack Snyder and was like, Batman? Yeah. Oh, I'd love to play Batman. And we know that, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, best friends. They are really good friends with Kevin Smith, who's a comic book fanatic, and that whole thing, there has to be some sort of fandom there that, like I said, if you guys know more about this than we do, let us know. But Affleck as Batman, awesome for me.
I was predisposed to not like Affleck because I heard a lot of negative stuff, and I was like, well, I'm just going to watch it and see, because maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I really did enjoy it, and I think it's just sometimes, haters got to hate, and you just got to, sometimes, squeaky wheels put you here, and then you just need to go out really at anything. It doesn't matter if it's critics or your best friend. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt and go check it out yourself before you make a decision. And that's with anything in life. Take everybody's opinion with a grain of salt, but then go check it out for yourself, because you might be pleasantly surprised, or you might agree with them.
Yeah, and that's what makes it. That's what's great. That's what's great about things like this, discussions, and making sure that you keep an open mind, because. If you like, I can't think of the name of the movies, but this has happened a couple of times for me personally, where I've taken friends' advice on don't go see it, it's a waste of time. And then when I see it just randomly because it's playing in the background, or a friend says, I want you to come over and watch this. And I go, sure, let's hang out. And I just immediately go, you know what sucks? I didn't get to see it in the theater because Joe Schmo told me, don't waste your money, don't waste your time. So,
do you know I had the opposite experience one time?
Really?
Yep. I was a big fan of the original movie The Fog with Adrienne Barbeau a long time ago. I love it. Met her at a con. Really great lady. Awesome. And I loved it so much that when they redid it, I told my buddies, oh, man, we had a couple movies to choose from. I said, oh, we got to go see The Fog. And they're like, okay, cool, Dave. We went in. I swear, like 15 minutes in, I'm in my seat cringing, going, why did I tell everybody to watch this? And I got ragged all day for it. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yikes.
Yeah, sometimes it can be wrong.
Yeah. It goes both. It could go both. It could.
Oh, it definitely went that other way.
Yeah, it could go both ways for sure. So that pretty much covers the pros and cons segment of it. I know we took a long time saying that.
Yeah,
the other ones are probably going to be a lot faster. I know I have who was the best Bruce Wayne and Batman, pretty much as like you said Nolan?
Oh.
Like the actual Christopher Nolan?
Yeah, sure. Let's try it. Won't be surprised.
So yeah, like just jumbling them together as one character. So for you, it's safe to say Nolan's Batman?
Yeah, Nolan's Batman.
Okay.
Christian Bale.
Gotcha.
Because he was kind of the, for me, he was the whole package overall. I mean, there's always pros and cons. There's certain things like about other Bruce Waynes and other Batman, but overall, Christian Bale's got it for me.
Now, for me, it's on a good day, Christian Bale, yes, of course, because those movies are amazing. But like I said, I don't know why. I was just so pleasantly surprised by Affleck and the fact that I wanted so much more, and maybe that's why I feel so undecided. I think if maybe we got more, I'd be like, oh no, Nolan all the way. But kind of the teaser, if you will, of Affleck is what makes me kind of be on his side for the quote-unquote best Batman. Now, I have said this before. I think that Affleck's Wayne is better than Bale's, but Bale's Batman is better than Affleck's. I've said that many times, and that's, yeah.
You don't have to try too hard to convince me, but I'm such a big fan of Bale. I'm like, I still want to go with Bale, but I see where you're going with that, and I do really like Affleck.
Yeah, his Bane, his Bruce Wayne was a little bit more important and integral to the movies he was in than his Batman was. Mm-hmm. So just the chemistry he had with everyone, the Gal Gadot and the rest of them, it was great. There's a scene with Aquaman where it's like he's just not intimidated. Everyone in that whole place is like, dude, you're about to get crushed, little man. We know his secret. This is the guy. This is the Aquaman, and he's just like, I know, that's fine.
And I do like the fact that he's hanging out with he's holding his own with all these other superheroes who have all these powers and abilities, and he's just a guy who's got a bunch of money and a bunch of gadgets. And, he gets too hard, falls too far, and he's done. And I think in Batman vs. Superman and in Justice League, you really get a sense of that, especially in Justice League. And you really get a sense of his injuries and how they last. And one of them was just like, oh, yeah, I just had a tank thrown on me and I got thrown through a building. and you want to go for some drinks or something? And, Batman was like, I'm kind of hurt. Not that happened in the movie, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You could definitely tell that he's trying to keep up with all these people who just no one could ever keep up with, but he manages to do it. And the cool thing is I like about Batman is he gets their respect.
He really does.
And it's not just in the movies, but it's in the cartoons, it's in the comic books. Like in Doom, they've got his he's got their respect because of how he is, who he is, and it's just amazing.
I like I said, there's just so much, so many breakdowns we could do on each character and what they represent in the franchises that that is the Batman universe. So for me, like I said, on a good day, it would be Bale. Mostly that'd be like my sleep deprived answer, but I really, really enjoyed Affleck. But cool. Moving on, the best villain. I think this is one of the questions you were really excited about.
Well, actually, it is, but it isn't.
Okay,
we're coming up. I think there's another question that I'm going to elaborate on.
Okay,
but Heath Ledger, Joker, best villain, hands down. I don't care what anyone says. Convince me you won't.
Now,
there's not a better villain.
Yeah. Now, for me, honestly, it would have to be Ledger's Joker. I think Ledger's Joker was what cemented the Batman in the quote-unquote mainstream. Now, as we all know, being a nerd is cool. It's no longer lame or, weird or whatever. Now, most people, the term nerdy is adopted as something that's positive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can agree with that. And I think that Ledger's Joker is what made the average movie fan a fan of Batman and a fan of what he represented to them.
They saw that and said, what is this?
Yeah.
And if you had kind of like, oh, look, Batman, oh, look, another Batman movie. And then someone said, oh, you got to go see The Dark Knight. It's amazing. Yeah, I'll go. And then you're thinking Adam West and you watch it and you're like, this is not the Joker I remember. And it really put the dark in The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger's Joker. Oh, my God.
Now, I'm very, very, I don't want to say ashamed, but honest when I tell people, like if they're like, what did you think of, which is a very weird question to ask someone, but what did you think of Ledger being cast as the Joker? I know that that's a topic that a lot of people, that weren't Batman fans or that were Batman fans at the same time were asked. But for me, no one ever really asked me. I did have an opinion, and that was that I did not like it. I saw I heard about it. I was like, wait, who? And they're like, the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You, the guy from A Knight's Tale, the guy from I forget what other movie they used as an example back then. And I was like, why would you cast that kid to play the Joker?
See, that's interesting because I'll be honest, I had no idea who he was before The Dark Knight. Because what you said, he was in Excalibur?
No, he was in for A Knight's Tale.
Or Knight's Tale. Okay, yeah, I saw that. But I just didn't put it together. It's just like Gary Oldman being in all these different roles. I didn't realize until I went back and looked. But I didn't know who he. I didn't know who he was. Didn't care who he was until I saw the movie. I thought, who is that guy?
Oh yeah, he was in the Patriot as well.
Had no idea. Watched it, loved it. Had no idea. Didn't know. Didn't care until The Dark Knight. Yeah,
I mean, so many people do his voice, his impression, and I thought my jokes were bad. That whole thing.
Cosplayers, man.
Oh yeah, man. It's such the makeup, the fact that he was with it.
Yeah.
His jokes were nothing but dark.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you could tell how dark he was, but he didn't get gruesome, if you know what I mean. There wasn't any gratuitous blood. I mean, there was definitely a lot of violence in the movie, but it wasn't like, oh my God, look at this room that's splattered in blood because of the Joker's here with a whatever. But no, it's just something about it, man. He brought a certain quality, a chill to when he stepped out. Just like, ooh.
Yeah, super unsettling. I know that yeah, exactly. With Michael Caine specifically, this is another little factoid that some of you may not know. The famous scene that was used throughout, I know eHollywood or eTrue Hollywood or whatever, a couple different channels when it was the new and hottest thing were showing little clips. And this clip was very, very, very popular. And it was when he shows up at the benefit or whatever, and he kicks the door open, shoots the shotgun, and he's like, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." That part, that was the very first time that Michael Caine saw him in costume.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And if you look, it is so fast. It is probably one of the fastest cuts in the movie. You actually see Michael Caine jump and literally look like he saw a ghost. And it was because when he walked in, he didn't know what was happening. And the cameras were rolling, and they went with it. And that is something that is very hard to create purposefully. I know that was the intention, but obviously the Nolan said, listen, you're going to be probably in your trailer or whatever. Don't show up because of XYZ. And you get a result like this when you try for it, obviously. But I don't think they could have replicated it the way it happened if they really, really wanted to. I think it was just a happy thing.
It translates very well on screen because you just feel it, when he feels it, because and it's not just the other people, but when you have another main character, and Alfred, Michael Caine is one of the main characters there, when he reacts strongly, because you're going to react strongly because you're, he's your surrogate in the movie,
Yeah, he's like the sense of the plot security.
Yep. Yeah. And you're like, oh no. And then you feel like anything can happen.
Exactly. And that's something that I know, like Game of Thrones took over with that. The whole don't get attached because you never know. You know? But that was such a good character for him to play. Some people think that it's what killed him. I know that Jack Nicholson was interviewed and they asked him, what he thought on his untimely death, and he said, well, I called him and I told him that to be careful with taking on that role because it'll kill you. And that was pretty much his comment. And,
wow.
A lot of it goes back to his death and like Paul Walker and all these actors that died doing what they loved, and whether they were not careful or whatever, that's definitely a topic for another conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
But it leaves a legacy that now we've gotten Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. We're probably going to get someone else play the Joker whenever the Robert Pattinson movie comes out, which I'm really excited about.
I'm curious about him. I've seen him in the trailer and I'm just like, I don't know a lot about him, and just watching him, I'm like, well, he's not Affleck, he's not Bale, he's not Kilmer, he's not Clooney, he's not Keaton. I don't know what to do. I got to just watch the movie and see.
I will say this, though. You're going to be really excited about this if you haven't noticed it yet. He's the first Batman that when he takes his cowl off, the eye makeup is still on.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. You are right. Because I remember watching it and going, man, why is his face all jacked up? Oh, yeah, that's the actual eye. But yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Oh, my gosh, finally.
Dude, it's happening. To me, it's going to be really cool. Not to get off topic, but the trailer really, like the fighting, the crunching of the
I'm super intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm really, man. I'm like, I just want another Batman movie.
Same.
You know,
and I'm ready for the world to get back to normal.
yeah,
So
if Christopher Nolan wants to put the cowl and cape on and go out there himself, I'll watch that movie too.
cool. I'd say cast Nolan as Batman and get like James Cameron as like the Joker, right? But yeah. So for me, definitely, I think we can move on to say that wow, Heath Ledger was the best villain. I was gonna give Bane a shout out because I think it's just the fact that Tom Hardy had a very fun time doing it.
Pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, but definitely the cake was taken by Ledger. So now this was an interesting one. Is there any movie that you deem unwatchable?
The remake of The Fog. Oh wait, this is a Batman thing. Unwatchable. If I have to pick one, and it's not too much of a stretch, I'm going to say Batman and Robin, you can totally skip out.
Same. I could not overstate that enough.
Holy rusted metal, Pastor. Let's not watch that movie.
Okay, moving on from that because it's just too painful.
That was easy.
Yeah. I think we pretty much covered our favorite Bruce Wayne and Batman. Which was your favorite movie?
I want to say Begins. Batman
Really?
Begins because it's the whole package for me.
Okay.
It's the whole package. I know it's the origin story, but I get so much more out of it. And they're pretty quick to come back from that and get the ball rolling. However, I think I really have to go with Dark Knight as if I could only pick one because I really enjoy all of them. Except for Batman Robin.
Yeah.
But Dark Knight because he's already established. I mean, I already know about Batman. I can just have Dark Knight as a standalone movie. It's got everything. Gary Oldman is still, of course, Commissioner Gordon. So good. It's got everything, and yeah, it's got to be the Dark Knight.
So for me, one would probably assume I would say the same thing. Now, I remember when I saw the Dark Knight in theaters, I was still living in New York City, and the line was insane. Now, for those of you that don't have a frame of reference, New York City is a huge, huge city, and it's, some would say, overpopulated. The city blocks are enormous. 21 square blocks, I think, is a mile, and the line was like 2 blocks long, and it wrapped around the theater. And people were not like, there was not a single person that I saw that said, I've been in line for X amount of, I'm just done. Everyone toughed it out. The theater had all hands on deck, and it was every single theater across the city for that movie.
It was only because I had to work that I didn't go see it more times.
Yeah, same. And for me, it was something that I said, I am not going to miss this. My friend, one of my old childhood friends from New York that's still there, that was my birthday present because it came out in July. And I was so excited. He was like, listen, we're going to go see it in the theater. Don't worry. Because I tried to get tickets, sold out. And he's like, I got you a ticket. And I was like, oh my God, dude, I love you. And we went to go see it. And because of the hours, and I think I was in line for like 5 hours to see it.
Man.
I was tired. I was really tired because I had gotten off work or something. I had a full day that had just happened, and then I was ending it with this movie, and I didn't expect to be out so late. And I ended up getting home at like 4 a.m. And yeah, between the travel time and the waiting and the movie itself, there was a scene, a very specific scene. And that's when, I forget her name. It's the detective, the female detective that was like closely working with Gordon, who you come to find out that her mother was in a nursing home or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that was the leverage that Ledger used. It was during that scene when she asked her coworker or something. She's like, any leads on Batman? And he goes, nope, not a thing. And he throws the paper in the trash, and they show like Bigfoot and Abraham Lincoln and all that.
I love that on the board in the background.
It was during that scene that I was like, and people and my friend was like, you okay? And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm just really tired. And I felt terrible because I'm like, I've been waiting so long to see this movie, and here I am dozing off, But for me, with all that being said, it's not my favorite movie. That is, for me, it was definitely Dark Knight Rises. Now, why?
Is it because of Bane?
No. That's funny. My phone just roared. For
Oh,
me,
sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. For me, it's because the plot was a little bit more insane, like in a good way. Um, how he took over an entire city, freed all the criminals, you know, took over Batman. Like he broke Batman. That was something that a lot of people knew if they read the Nightfall comic books. The whole is he gonna? Because I went to the theater with a friend of mine and we sat there and we're like, is he gonna do it, dude? Is he gonna do it? Do you think he's gonna do it? And he's like, I don't think so. I think they're gonna gloss over it. They're probably gonna not. It's probably not gonna be something someone wants to see. And I was like, I want to see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, when it happened, you could hear a pin drop in that theater. Every single person was like they and I think one of the trailers revealed it or something, or somebody spoiled it or whatever. I was beside myself. I was like, dude, he broke Batman literally, and he got back down to square one, thrown in this pit, learned about this child who escaped and all that. It was just such a deep story. We got Catwoman again, which Catwoman's one of my favorite villains for Batman. Just because of, love story aside, but it was like Batman and Catwoman for me were like almost synonymous with misfortunes in life. And then one went one way, one went the other way. And sure, the money helped Batman go the way he went, I think, to some degree. But Catwoman was, I don't know, very, very attractive as far as like why she did it. And the whole thing about, was she human? Did she have powers? I know that there are other stories that show like when they have kids together that the child comes out with powers, and that's not because of Bruce. It's
I
because
actually didn't realize that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
and I did really like her character in Rises. Just to me, it was the best iteration of Catwoman.
Oh yeah, like how she snuck into his his manner, and how he was, she pretty much was like sorry and just flipped out the window.
Yeah, she had the look, she had the feel. She even had a little. Even felt like when she had her hair down and her goggles were up. Of course, it looks like the cat ears still, and it all kind of a throwback to Julie Newmar and all the other ladies who played Catwoman from back of the day. And
it was a huge callback to her. I think.
Enormous. definitely.
Anne Hathaway's great, and I was happy that they went with her. Of course, Tom Hardy was amazing, but I felt like the movie was so long because the story was so intricate and so detailed and so like, I know when I reached to the scene of when they have like when the what's his name, the Scarecrow has like he's like presiding on the court of the people, and and he's like exile or death, and they're like death, well, death by exile, and like he has them walk through the ice. That seemed like a different movie. Like,
oh, it really did. And I think that's the only Batman movie that I could say you could have done in two parts, and I'd been on board for it.
Yeah,
add a little more stuff here and there. Make it a two-parter and just call it good.
Probably like, of course, switch some things around for lengthwise, but right when Batman gets his back broken, end it with that.
Oh yeah, and just cut the black. Batman will return in Batman Rises 2 or whatever.
It's just so good. Like that. That for me, I can probably have an entire episode about Dark Knight Rises and why I enjoyed it. The writing, the lines, like the part where he's like, what is it? The plane sequence. And I know that I think Mythbusters debunked it. They were like, that's impossible, but it doesn't matter. To me, it was cool.
I don't care because I watched some videos about that. I didn't watch the Mythbusters one, but somebody else had done a detailed analysis of it. And I watched that and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of, I don't care.
It's like the thing that they did with Jaws, where they're like, oh, he can never shoot the tank. I'm like, I don't care. It's amazing. Like, I love it.
I also watch movies not to be reminded of how real reality is, but how fun movies are.
Exactly.
And that's what it's all about. And honestly, also too, I'm a big role player, Dungeons and Dragons, and that's just the tip of the iceberg for me. I've played so many different games with so many different people, and it's all about just having fun, just doing crazy stuff. I mean, not once in any of my games, someone's going to go, wait a minute, I feel that dragon is a little unrealistic. I mean, a dragon, really? Oh, we're playing fantasy. Be quiet. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let it happen, man. Let it happen.
Exactly. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, there's just so much about all of these movies that are, you have to suspend disbelief to some degree, but
escapism.
Totally. Right. Exactly. And I loved it, dude. I loved every bit of it. It just seemed like it was this grand story, this grand finale, that back to that scene with the plane where the henchman is like, okay, you have a plan for all these guys. You have parachutes and all this. And then he's like, we need one of us in the wreckage, brother, or whatever. Then he's like, the fire, what is it? Is the fire coming or something? And he goes, yes, the fire rises. And the music just keeps on going right after he says that. It's like, it seemed like the score paused every time Bane spoke.
Oh, and something else I thought was cool is you could tell he really had the respect of the men because they were getting ready to pull him out of the plane. And he's like, no, brother.
Yeah.
You know, because there had to be so many bodies or something like that. And the guy's like, okay. And he just stays. And I'm like, he's got some kind of influence. He's got some kind of cult leadership thing going on.
That's the guy he's like, he's like, we need one of us in the wreckage. Yeah. He was talking to that dude. And he just goes, okay.
My gosh.
And he just sinks back in his seat and smiles at him with like a tear going down his eye. And then of course the him with, I forget the name of the actor, but he plays Orson Krennic, where he tells him, he's like, I paid you a small fortune. And he's like, I'm in charge, I'm in control. And he's like, do you feel in control? Like, I was like, dude, it's so good.
That was really good.
He was so crass, like not crass, but he was so direct and blunt. Like when he says, oh, Gordon's dead. And he goes, oh, he's dead? And he goes, then show me his body. And the guy's like, wait, but I saw him fall. He goes, well, show me his body. And he's like, nobody could survive that. And he goes, follow him. And the guy's like, what? And he shoots him in the leg so that he can fall and slide into the waterfall. Like, insane. Like, and blowing up the football field.
Yeah.
And it's just
you can definitely tell he plays by his own rules, his own honor system. If he can get one up on you, well, there you go.
And it's one of those things where it's like, was his motivation 100% bad? Because a lot of it was corruption, and everything's corrupt, and they're pretty much like an anarchist kind of thing, but he really believed. He wasn't trying to incite, crazy, because that's what the Joker did. That wasn't his shtick. His shtick was, everything is wrong, so we need to break it all down and fix it back up, And I know that that's a very, very weird way of doing it. I'm not advocating that at all, but he had a pure ideology for him. He wasn't this lawless man. He loved Talia al Ghul, loved her, was banished from the League of Shadows. I know Alfred makes a point where he's like, this guy didn't leave. He was like blackballed, like they were like, and he goes, any man too crazy for Ra's al Ghul is not to be trifled with, and that's just so heavy,
Yeah, it is.
The fact that he did that, and the fact that Tom Hardy is not a big man, but they made him look like he was 7 feet tall in that movie. I mean, you guys know he's short. He's a very short dude for a guy that had the presence that he had as Bane. The mask, I thought that was great. And I like that they left the Venom part out, that he was not this like mindless, like, roar, like, dude, don't even, that's one of the problems that I have with the old movies. So because I love Bane as a character, and he was just this mindless idiot. And then you get Hardy as Bane, and I'm like, it's different, but I love it, So for me, it would be, all that being said, I know I went on a tirade, is definitely Dark Knight Rises. And very last question, bullet point, and I think we should wrap it up with this, is if there was any Batman villain, any villain that Warner Brothers said, Dave, I need you to tell me who Batman's going to fight in the next Batman movie, go.
And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, it's going to be Mr. Freeze. I know we had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. There's a couple points where I thought he was kind of cool, and then he's just campy and lame. Sorry, Arnie, but that's just what I feel. However, I do feel that he is underutilized, and I think it'd be pretty easy for him to do a lot of mental sparring with Batman, and I like his motivations. I think it's a good opportunity for him to do things, be kind of in a gray area, because, and of course, I'm going to just, because it's on my mind, I'm going to say it anyways, he appeared in Batman 121 as Mr. Zero. He had an accident. He was just like a joke villain, like just villain of the week. He had an accident while working on a freeze ray, so he's got to wear his super cold suit. Well, they reinvent him as Victor Freeze, spelled F-R-I-E-S, so it sounds like fries, but it's really freeze. And so he's an expert cryogenist in Gotham City, and his wife, Nora, has this terminal illness, and he's trying to cure that, and he has an accident, and presumably with cryogenics, which causes him to have to be in this super cooled cryogenic suit or a very cold room or in an environment that's super cold so he can live. But here's the thing. With Mr. Freeze, and it's even showcased a little bit in Batman and Robin with Arnold, He loves his wife so much so that he does everything he can to sustain her life. He puts her in suspended animation, and he works tirelessly to find a cure for her terminal illness, which means if he does anything that's too off the wall, he won't be able to do it because he'll be in jail. And someone else, like the state, will take control of her and stuff like that. So he has to be more careful, and that's underutilized because with Arnold's character, he's like, I freeze, and he's just freezing everything. Come on, man. That's not his end game. He might orchestrate it to go get money to, or supplies or whatever to help her and to eventually cure her. His love is his end game. And I think there'd be a lot of gray area where things would happen and Batman could trace it back to him. But to me, Batman being the world's greatest detective would actually have to have this mental sparring match with what I would think is probably the world's greatest scientist, or one of them. I don't think he's as good as Batman, but his motivation is so strong, his drive is so strong, he would find a way, not try to evade Batman, that's not his goal, but his goal is to, of course, save his wife. And in doing that, he's like, oh, I got to be careful because I have to avoid law enforcement. Oh, there's the Batman. So he's really got to plan out his steps. And being a scientist, he's got a whole scientific method going on. He's got a process. He's got a logical mind going on, much like Batman, Bruce Wayne. And so I think it's a missed opportunity. I thought they kind of threw him away. And I also thought some of the early villains were kind of thrown away too. But they could really do so much with him because of that, his love for his wife and his drive. Because, I mean, I just thought his story, when you really look at it, it's like, wow, that's amazing. He's super underutilized. And I think they could bring him back and do him justice. And he could easily, keep popping up in a couple of movies. Oh, it's Mr. Freeze again,
Yeah. That's interesting.
I went off on a just rant on that, but that's what I really thought. And I just think it's cool.
I actually didn't think that's who you were going to say, honestly.
Oh, wow. Who'd you think?
Well, I didn't have per se someone I thought, but I didn't know that it would be someone that was a reinvention, because I figured you probably just wanted something fresh. That's just my thought process going into it. But
it was just always interesting because it really wasn't, he was very altruistic when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Because he's, Joker's out for himself. All these other guys want to fool Batman or kill Batman or do whatever. They just want to see things burn. But his end game is actually super good.
Yeah, it's like a noble cause.
Yeah, it's a noble cause, but he just goes about it the wrong way. But he's like, that's all he can see because he's blinded by his love for his wife. He's like, I'm going to do this because I'm not going to fail. Her husband, am going to save the woman I love.
I like that. I mean, I didn't even think of it that way, honestly.
I've been thinking too much about it.
But that's actually really cool. I really appreciate that because it's, a fresh take. It's not when I'm told something that I didn't think about, it's fun. I know that sounds stupid and silly, but like, I didn't know that that's where you were going. Is very interesting. And I would watch it, obviously, obligation for a Batman movie, but yeah, that's very interesting. For me, it's kind of a cluster.
Oh, really?
Because a lot of these villains probably would not need their own spotlight as the villain because it wouldn't be, like, I guess, practical in a sense as far as storytelling goes. So I just have 3 villains that I just want to see. Part of it is just to see them on the big screen in real life. And then one of them is just because I'm a big fan of them. For me, not in any particular order, I would like to see Clayface.
Okay. I can see that.
Clayface is just a character that I think would give Batman a lot of trouble, especially initially. I think he would have to plan how he's going to defeat Clayface. I think they can really showcase a really Tim Burton dark, dirty city, and Clayface just having his pretty much having Among Us transportation of just sewers and everything and just whatever he wants.
That's very interesting. I know a little bit about Clayface, but not a lot. That's cool.
Yeah, Clayface was because he's basically like DC's Sandman. Unless I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am. He's very pliable and mandible. Yeah. He's literally just a blob of clay. And then, like I said, because some of these villains probably need a little bit of help, so to speak. Maybe not. But Clayface was on the list for me. The other one was, what was his name? The Mad Hatter. Because it was just super different, I guess. It would be a different take.
See, to me, that's kind of more like getting a discount Riddler and Joker to me.
And I could see that.
I mean, I'm not trying to diss you or nothing
but I
that,
mean, like for him,
that's just how I think.
definitely not like the spotlight. Like I would just like a little like nod to him as a character because it's just so unexpected.
But not all villains need to be the big bads,
Right.
threaten the world, threaten the entire city, you know.
Yeah.
And I think there does need to be some of that little lower tier stuff.
Yeah. Now with the Mad Hatter, it was more of like a nod. So I guess there's 4. As far as like a real villain, the next one would be like Man Bat. I know we got a little bit of that in.
I would like to see that.
Yeah.
That would be really good. I would make him like more of a top tier villain.
Yeah.
Even for me, Mr. Freeze would be kind of like, because of how he is, he wouldn't necessarily be like a super top tier villain. He'd be getting close, but Man Bat would be, I think, even better than Freeze, just because he's so different, and he's almost like a dark reflection of Batman, so to speak.
Exactly.
And that's I think what's really cool about that, and I'm on board for that totally.
Yeah, especially that scene in I think it was the first one with Scarecrow. Whenever
oh yeah,
dude, and he's flying over the city.
Yeah.
There's that, and then there's that scene in I think it's Batman v Superman where Batman is like, I can't remember what happens, but he's like having a dream where he's that desert Batman that I call the Commando Batman.
Yeah, that was cool.
And he goes into that cave and he touches something, and then like that creature comes out at him. That's supposed to be Man Bat, but we just never know.
I gotta go watch that again.
Yeah. So that like really lit the fire because Man Bat comes out in the animated series, which I think you're going to really enjoy when you get to that.
Okay.
But now, I guess they are in some sort of order because now this is the one that if I could only pick one of these guys, it would be this one, and it's just because I'm a pure fan. I just really, really enjoy him, and that's Solomon Grundy. I know that he was supposed to be, I think, a Green Lantern villain originally, and it just didn't go over well. So then he just kind of became a Batman villain.
He was part of the Legion of Doom in the cartoons.
Yeah. Dude, the nursery rhyme, super cool. The fact that, he had a character before the zombie, so they can touch on Cyrus Gold a little bit and then just be like, no, now he had this accident and he fell in the lake of I forget what they call it, the dead lake or whatever. And now he's this zombie that pretty much like the anti-Hulk, and he's very, very like dumb, I guess, but like also you can see traces of the mobster and the gangster that was him when he was alive. And I just think that would be a really cool villain just to kind of see come about. And they can do a really good job with having Batman like get bested by someone that's stronger than him or impermeable.
I can see him driven by kind of a intelligent instinctiveness, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mainly though, it's like I just like him.
I didn't expect Solomon Grundy, but I see why though, because I always thought when I was watching the cartoons of the Legion of Doom, I always thought it was cool to see Solomon Grundy. I'm like, whoa, man, dude, he's kind of intimidating, you know?
Because when I first heard his name, I thought it was Solomon and Grundy. So I thought it was 2 people that worked like in tandem together. And then when I saw him, I was like, that's one dude. And then I was like, wait. And I like Googled his name, and it was Solomon, and his last name was Grundy, And do you know the nursery rhyme by chance?
Actually, I do not.
So have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
So apparently it's this kind of like a calling card, or like how Freddy Krueger has that little song that the girls sing when they're on the jump rope, that Freddy's coming for you, 3, 4, that kind of deal. And it's, I hope I don't butcher this the first time, but it's Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday, christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, grew worse on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday.
Wow.
That's how it is.
That's pretty cool.
And like when he comes out, like I play him in the video games and stuff. When he comes out, he talks in the third person, but like he's very much a zombie. So like he's very like at one point he pulls like a tombstone out of his gut. Like it's
what? That's
weird.
Crazy.
Yeah, and he has like a noose around his neck. Because they hung him. They did pretty much. The mob got a hold of him, and then whenever they were done with his body, they just threw it in this lake. And it was unbeknownst to them that the lake had magical properties. So instead of him being like no one's gonna look for him in here.
Almost kind of like a weird Lazarus pit.
Yeah, honestly it may have been the Lazarus pit, but I don't think so because it was out in the open and it was undisturbed by people. And he kind of just rose out.
Fascinating.
And he was like, I'm no longer Cyrus Gold. Call me Solomon Grundy now. And I was like, that is so cool.
That's creepy. See, I love that supernatural stuff. It's cool.
And it just adds to Batman because, he is known, at least for me, he only loses once to one person. You know, he loses one time, doesn't lose again. You know, and I would just love to see him go up against something so obscure like that you have to think really outside the box, because the guy's not human.
Yeah, because it would take him a little bit to figure out, you know, for sure.
Yep. As always, I'm going to do a quick few plugs. The names that are scrolling right about now in front of both of us, those are all the wonderful patrons to the channel. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. If you would like to become a patron, it's a great way of helping the channel grow and adding your name to this wonderful list that Dave's trying to pluck out of the air here. And yeah, they are responsible for me getting like all this wonderful equipment to make these podcasts for you guys, to help me make content that's more quality and the production value and all that good stuff. And also just a great way to support small content creators like myself. All the links are going to be in the description. I have a Teespring page. I have like 4 different t-shirt designs that I have in my profile that's not public yet. One of them I'm really excited about, and definitely going to put them up as soon as I'm done with the finishing touches and everything like that. But that description, if you'd like a t-shirt to support the channel that way, the easiest way is if you're new here and you just happen to find this episode somehow, definitely hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed it. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and if you didn't, hit the thumbs down. And if you really want to watch more stuff like this, hit that subscribe button. That's the best way to support the channel. It doesn't cost anything, and it'll help us grow and help us get all these episodes out and get new members and new fans to the podcast and to the channel as a whole. So, but yeah, I also want to plug in. Dave is also a YouTuber, and
Thank you very much.
Yeah, dude, he makes channels, or he makes content for his channel. And it's for the store. Did you want to take over and just plug it in?
Yeah, it's just Game Masters Guild on YouTube. Game Masters, one word. Guild is another word. And I just do a little bit of everything. New product as it comes out. Sometimes I do some retro stuff. I do some stuff on Magic. It's kind of a variety channel in a way, I guess, because it's just I kind of do whatever I got time for and whatever I feel like. But I try to put something every week, every Thursday at noon. I drop something, and you get something. And there's a little bit of something for everybody, I think. And I'm always doing other stuff, and I'm always inspired by what Pastor's doing. And I got to admit, his setup is way better than mine.
Oh man, I appreciate that. But yeah,
it's really good. You're really professional, top notch.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I'm trying real hard. I know I enjoy, like you. I enjoy a lot of the stuff that I do. It's a hobby. It's you know, I just have a lot to say and a lot to put down out for you guys, and I'm always taking requests. I'm always asking anyone who says, "Oh, you got a channel?" And I was like, "Yeah, give me a request for a video to make." So if you have one, leave it in the description.
Oh, definitely.
And as always, I try really, really hard to get at least one question so that we can read it in the next podcast. We don't have one for this episode because we didn't get a question, unfortunately. But I think it worked out because I didn't have the question to show you anyway. So
okay, that worked out.
And yeah, so basically this is the part in the podcast where we would answer a viewer question, and we would, you know, give them a shout out for asking it on the previous.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if you want your question read out on the podcast, definitely leave it in the description below and say, hey, would you read this in the next episode? And I would love to do that for you and answer it as well. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it. Batman, it's a character that's existed since what, 35?
I think I want to say his first appearance was 1939 Detective Comics, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah,
I think it's that one, right?
I believe that is this is actually that's number 1. So that's not actually
true.
Oh,
for Detective Comics, yeah.
Because I think his first appearance was Detective Comics in 1939, but I can't remember which issue of Detective Comics.
Gotcha.
So.
But yeah, we could do this all day. As we said, I think we're talking more about Batman.
Yep. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments, but I think I'm pretty close.
So yeah, Batman created by Bob Caine, as most of you know, but with Bill Finger.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Bill Finger is very important. So I always, every time I talk about Batman, I always mention that at least once. So anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you guys. See you on the next podcast or in the next video. And if you enjoy it, stick around for the rest of these episodes, because I think they're going to be a lot of fun to make. So we'll see you in the next one.
I had a great time, and thank you again for having me, and I really appreciate it.
Okay, man.
And thanks for everybody for watching.
Yep. Love y'all. See you later.